If you can make it in Chicago, you can make it anywhere in the world, right? If you can make it in Chicago, you can make it anywhere in the world. Fighting out of the Chatham corner. We got Jahmal, activist in Chicago. Y'all wanna rumble? Let's do it.
Jahmal represents Chicago in a real way. Even with the dark cloud that hovers sometimes, you cannot keep the sunlight out.
Where are you gonna get the money from to start a nonprofit? My mortgage, that's where I get the money from.
He has a view, and he's put his stake in the ground to try to make a difference. And he's not on the sideline complaining about what's not happening. He's in the arena trying to make something happen.
120 kids aspiring to be more than dope dealers on their block, that's what I do it for. Don't let nobody tell you a spreadsheet is gonna change the world. It's a good idea, and then you have to have the faith to see it through.
Stephen Van Patten here for the next come up. A Tiny Ripple of Hope is a moving documentary that features Jahmal Cole, the leader of My Block, My Hood, My City, a youth outreach organization that brings hope to teenagers across Chicago's South and West Sides. But along with his important work, Jahmal must battle to keep his home, his marriage, and his life. A Tiny Ripple of Hope follows a formative year in the life of Jahmal's and his organizations. Joining me is the director of the film, a founding member of the Chicago-based production company One City Films, Jason Polevoi. Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. As the director, how did all this come about? Did the project find you, or did you find the project?
A little bit of both, actually. Back in about 2015, I read a local news story about Jahmal and what he was doing, funding his program by selling T-shirts and hoodies, and I really liked his message and how he was helping kids, and so I bought a T-shirt, and I was producing a show here in Chicago for WGN at the time, and so I booked Jahmal for an episode of the show, and we got to talking afterwards, and he said, I would love to host a travel show. And I was like, you're already the busiest dude I've ever met. You do not want to host a travel show. But I always wanted to make the jump from TV to documentaries. And so it felt like a good time. And I said, hey, how would you feel about me following you around with cameras for a year or so? And following him around with cameras for a year turned into following him around with cameras for 3 years. And 4 years later, we have a movie.
Wow. All right. I have to ask, as the documentarian, were you able to keep a certain professional distance, or did you find yourself becoming, shall we say, emotionally invested?
Yeah, it's hard because I'm not a passive observer. The one thing that I most remember from film school, which I graduated in 2008, so it was a long time ago, but the one thing I remember was a professor told me documentaries can have a point of view. And that was kind of revelatory for me, because a lot of people think about documentaries as, like something you would see in the New York Times or something like that. I mean, and it's not. We're allowed to have an opinion. And so I knew that it was okay that I supported the work he was doing and that I was making the film as a kind of like a signal boost. But yeah, you do have to then wrestle with where the line is the between becoming too emotionally involved so that you can't tell the story in the correct way, but also having the kind of emotional depth to deal with another human being, because ultimately that's what he is. He's not my subject. He's my friend.
Okay. That kind of leads us to the next question, which was basically just in terms of his passion for what he was doing and what his ability to execute, let's say. What do you feel you learned from spending that year with him? I imagine he left you very inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. The big takeaway from the film is also kind of what I learned and how I grew, spending all that time with him. And that's, he says, what's something simple you can do in your community that will make a difference? And that's making change on a small level like that and watching it ripple out through the city and the state and the country, making tangible change is really important to me now after spending all that time with Jahmal, knowing my neighbors, going out and shoveling the snow for them when they're not able to, planting in an urban garden where the food gets donated to a food bank, picking up trash on my block so that the kids who play there don't have to worry about it. I mean, this is really important stuff to me, and it makes a difference in people's lives. And my street in Chicago was hit by a really freak tornado this past summer. Like, I've never seen a tornado in my life. And it ripped right down my street and destroyed the whole street. And I called Jahmal and I said, hey, I'm going to rally people from the neighborhood to clean up. Can you bring some volunteers? And we had like 100 people from all over the city the next day helping us clean up. So,
wow.
it would be impossible for the man not to rub off on you in some way.
Yeah. Wow. A tornado in Chicago. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Wow. I it's funny, I guess, with all the craziness that's been going on in 4 years, I feel like that would have had bigger news coverage, but
just add it to the list of things that happened in 2020,
Yeah, tell me. Oh my God. You got to interview some really interesting people. Rahm Emanuel, Chi Rhymefest, Kweku, Lena Waite. Was it difficult, like sort of maneuvering in all these various worlds, or were you just kind of like the fly on the wall? Like, how did that work out?
I knew I wanted to interview, Chicago luminaries, artists, politicians, thinkers, to kind of give context to what we were seeing in terms of the life Jahmal was living, the life that the teenagers that are featured are living, because, another goal of mine was to change a bit of the media perception about Chicago. The national and international media portrays it as this, horrible place. And that's just not the reality of the people that live here. Bad things happen everywhere, but there are good people everywhere as well. And so I thought that, interviewing people that know the city and know what it's like to grow up here would give important context. And so, like, Lena Waithe was able to say, like, kids in Chicago have a bad reputation, but they're just kids. And Rahm Emanuel was able to say that, like, lots, as mayor, he knows that lots of people have plans for how to fix the city, but Jahmal is actually doing it. He's actually out there on the ground trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
And Rhymefest was great because, he lives in the same neighborhood as Jahmal, and he runs a nonprofit in addition to being like a Grammy and Oscar winning, writer. And so all of these people, along with all the other great people that we interviewed, I think play an important role and provide important context.
Wow. Was there anyone you wanted that you didn't get?
Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of people that we could have gotten. I think we did like something like 15 or 20 interviews, and there were people that we had scheduled and had to change at the last minute. And we're going to talk to Isaiah Thomas, who grew up in the neighborhood that the teens grew up in. We were going to talk to Chance, but that kind of fell through. So I could have interviewed Chicago legends forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we got a really good group of people to represent the city.
Yes, you totally did. I have to ask, has the pandemic had an effect on your ability to market the film?
Yeah, I mean, finish it, first of all. I mean, I was scheduled to fly to LA to kind of like get to picture lock with our editor the week that everything shut down, like last March. And they closed their offices out in LA, and it became real scary all of a sudden to leave your house. And we finished the film all, over Skype and Zoom and other ways. And then, it's like navigating the festival circuit right now is a real crapshoot. And no one has any idea what the right answer is because no one's ever been through this before. I mean, Slam Dance has never been virtual.
I was just about to say, is there a festival scene at all?
No, so there's a drive-in for the closing night film, but just that film. And they initially had a filmmakers retreat in Joshua Tree set up, finding like drive-ins around there. But I mean, California has just gotten worse and worse and worse in terms of its COVID numbers. And, so they ended up canceling everything. And I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, Palm Springs canceled their festival, which is a big early festival. South by Southwest is all online again this year. Doc Fortnite's all online. So, I mean, there's no right answer to. I think it's really cool that Slamdance only charged $10 for a pass. So, people could see hundreds of movies for just $10. And that's cool. And I lose some of the experience of going to the parties and getting free drinks and everything like that. But a lot more people saw my film. I can promise you that.
Wow. It's a lemonade situation there. But that's cool. At least you got that much going. Let's talk cutting room floor. You were with Jahmal for a year. I would imagine that you got something that you probably wanted to put in, and for the sake of, let's say, pacing, timing, whatever, didn't make it. Anything come to mind? Anything stick out?
Well, we filmed with Jahmal and the kid for 3 years. So we had 150 hours of footage. Oh, the lockdown has actually given me the opportunity to kind of work with some of that footage that hit the cutting room floor. In a more interesting way. I mean, there's a quick scene where the kids go to prom, and it's just like this. It's incredible. It's like culturally, it's different than any prom that I ever went to, and everyone that has seen it is like, whoa, we need to see more of that. So, I sat down and I cut like a 15-minute just prom featurette that will hopefully get out there at some point. So, another lemonade out of lemons situation is I had the time because I was stuck in my house to, repurpose some of that footage that didn't make it into the film.
Wow. Well, if nothing else, I'm sure the kids will really appreciate seeing that.
Oh yeah.
So, about halfway through the film, you have this morning where Jahmal didn't make it to set because he apparently had been shot at. Now, I can't imagine what your overall reaction to the news must have been. I mean, you didn't really show yourself or your crew reacting to it, but I'm just curious to know, as somebody that is involved in production myself, like what was that like getting that news, having to respond to it, and so on.
Yeah, Jahmal's really busy, so it wasn't unlike him to, take a little while to respond to a text or an email. And I was just really I was confirming with him that morning that we were going to meet up with him that afternoon to film an exploration. He was taking the teens somewhere that day, and I didn't hear anything. And my crew was like, is this happening? What's going on? And so I reached out to a few other people around him, didn't hear anything. And then, kind of out of the blue, I got a message from Cody, who you see in the film, who was working for Jahmal at the time, that he, had been involved in this drive-by shooting outside of one of the schools. And he lost his phone in the process of running away. And, I was shocked. I mean, I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to just drop what I was doing and go make sure he was okay. I wanted to check on the teens, and it's like, you feel helpless when you're in that situation. I mean, again, that's a time when my filmmaker hat just disappeared, and it was just a person or a friendship. And so it was really difficult. And when we talked later that day, we had the conversation. I said, is this something that you want to talk about on camera? And he said, well, I would like to take you back there. And so that was really intense. That was probably the most intense moment as we were filming, is when he took us back, a day or two later, to where he had just almost lost his life.
Yeah, I have to imagine that was you want to go where? One of those things. I think it was Cody actually who mentioned that you guys are, or they were going to actually try to contact the shooters and have a conversation. Did that actually happen?
That was Moni Moan. That was his Jahmal's kind of right-hand man. No, they never really found out who the guys were. I don't, like Moni says, I don't think Jahmal was a target. I just think it was wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
But you never know, because they didn't know. They never found the guys. And it was, but I mean, I think that speaks to Jamal's character, that it's like, you know, these guys almost killed him. And the first thing he thinks about is wanting to find them so that he can mentor them in some way, so that he can try and change their direction in life, as opposed to, you know, so many other things that would pop to people's mind, you know, immediately after something like that happens.
Well, yeah, I have to say that is pretty, unorthodox reaction to
Yeah.
being shot at. I can speak to that a little. As the director, what is it you want people to walk away with?
I think there are Jamals in every community. Like, there's people doing amazing things all over this country.
Yeah.
And what I want people to see and take away from this film is that they don't have unlimited resources. It's really, really difficult to run a nonprofit and to find funding. And, you know, Jahmal is high profile here in Chicago because he's always on the news and he's everywhere. And I think people think of him as a superhero. And he says, you know, I'm the highest profile poor person in the city, because every penny he has goes into running this program. And so I want people to see that, understand the struggle, understand the difficulty, and lift some of that burden from the Jamals in their community. Say, hey, you know what? Like, these people are doing enough. Let's take it into our own hands. Let's clean up our own block. Let's tutor kids after school that live on my street. Let's clean up the alley. It's every little bit of tangible difference helps.
Yes. Well, I got to tell you, Jahmal Cole, amazing guy, and you did an incredible job with this film.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, really touching stuff. Folks, if you would like to donate to My Block, My Hood, My City, please see the link at the bottom of the page. Jason, I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thanks.